Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I am so excited to introduce my next guest. I feel like it's been forever since we've had a time to catch up, but she's such a beautiful being with so many things going on and really loving what it is that she does and what she's passionate about. So, Colleen, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Thanks, Kat. I'm so glad to be here. And it was awesome to catch up. And it's incredible to me how much in a short period of time, both our lives and the paths we were on have shifted and changed. And that's just the beauty of it. When you make up your mind and you decide you want to do something, you just start going in motion, and then everything just the universe starts pulling it all to you, and everything just starts happening so fast. You just have to have the faith and the belief to take the leap. That's it.
Yes. Oh, I 100% agree with that. And it's so funny is that I have to repeat that to myself all the time because even
Yeah.
though I can go back and say, I've seen it happen here, I still get in that space of like, but it's not going to. And you're like, so it's so funny how you have to continually be like, yeah, but this has happened before. It's going to go but like you said, 100% decision. So as we roll into that, then what was your 100% decision? What is it that you do? Give us a little bit of background.
My gosh, I've been in corporate America for 30 years. I retired out of corporate America back in 2018, 19-ish. It was kind of in between those 2 years that I retired out of corporate America, but I spent a good 18 years in franchising. So I learned how to be a business advisor. I learned how to negotiate leases. I learned how to take a business from zero to hero in a startup, right? So I'm blessed that I had the opportunity for all those years to be able to have that skill set, to learn new things, to be curious, to try new things, and make so many friends in the franchising world during that time. So when my husband and I were looking to expand his company, Phoenix Drone Pros, in the last few years, we've tried to hire drone pilots, throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
And the quality of videos or work we would get back, we were like, no, that's not the level at which Phoenix Drone Pros is, and delivers to our clients. So we couldn't deliver that to our client. And I said, why don't we franchise? So my husband and I, while I was still full-time in my businesses that I built as a business advisor and doing masterminds and retreats and being on stages and doing keynotes and writing books and hosting conferences, all the things I was doing, I'm like, yeah, let me help you franchise this business. And he has never been in franchising, And then along the way, our daughter-in-law is like, hey, there's this business for sale, and we would really love to go into business with you and buy this catering business because it's a pizza catering business. We love pizza. We're like, sure. So I'm like, yes, 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 the whole way, right, to all these things, not to even mention that that was one of the 7 kids. We have 13 grandkids. So lots of games, lots of fun stuff in the evening, lots of dance recitals going on, football, baseball, basketball, you name it. I could go on and on, gymnastics, dance. It's so much fun. But you're like, how do I do all of this? So I had to make that decision last year that I was going to sell my online community I'd built for 7 years. It was time. When I looked at my schedule, I said, what takes up most of my time? And it was this community I had built. And so I prayed and prayed, and the face came to me on who it needed to be. I called her. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. She's like, I do believe you, because I've prayed and prayed about what I need to do to build a community. And here we go. So that transition happened in November. And then, I do local conferences. So I brought on a partner to take care of powering all of those conferences, so I can just be the face of the conference, which takes all the responsibility and all the time off of my back. So this year, the decision I made was I'm going to do 2 things. I am going to sell franchises for our business. And I am going to make sure every wedding planner and every wedding venue local knows who Beyond Basil Mobile Pizzeria is. That's my goal, because both of these companies are local in Arizona. And I've worked nationally and internationally for so long. So now with Phoenix Drone Pros, we're selling franchises across the United States. And for Beyond Basil, I always say I'm just going to Colleenify it, which is my name. I'm just going to go do my magic and do my thing, which is relationship building. That's just what I do really, really well. So I'm meeting commercial real estate brokers locally. I'm meeting venues, and going and doing tours. Like one day I'm, in a Phoenix Drone Pros business. The other day I'm, in the wedding industry. It's hilarious. But I made those 2 decisions. And when we make the 2 decisions, or the decision like you did on your shift, when you make it, you've got to burn the boats on the other things. So I can't keep holding on to all this stuff. And I have had 4 different individuals come to me asking me, are you taking clients? Are you taking clients? And immediately I couldn't believe it. I paused and I looked at them and I said, no, I'm not. It's a distraction. And I was like, why would I say that? But it is a distraction. It's a distraction from the 2 goals that I have set for the year. And I can't just take on clients, because then my whole schedule gets filled with the deliverables for a client in startup or scaling. And then I'm not able to really focus on where I need to focus. So, when you just kind of put all your eggs in a couple baskets and you burn every boat from the Think and Grow Rich book, Napoleon Hill, then you have to win, because the only other option is defeat. And that is the long story on how I made the 2 decisions, but it wouldn't have made sense if I would have just started at the end. So I had to explain all the other details.
No, I think it's wonderful. And I love the backstory to it, because I feel like it fills in the holes for people who generally, especially online nowadays, we tend to hear like, I was $2 million in debt, but this is where I'm at today. And look at all the, like, we're missing all of the pieces and components in the middle,
Yeah.
which is always the questions that people are asking, right? How did you decide to do that? What made you decide to do this? Well, why aren't you doing this anymore? Like, there's that huge gap of in between that everybody's trying to wrap their head around to figure
Yeah.
out how they get to where this person is now that they're
Yeah.
listening to.
It's
And
scary.
it is, and we forget to share that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know for you, but like when you decided like this is it,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to do, was it, something that you like really had to sit down and be like, this makes sense, this doesn't, or was it more of like a feeling of I know where I want to go, right? And like I want to take it this direction. Like,
I feel like I'm being guided or asked to be obedient and step up into these roles with my family businesses. That is very different than I want to step up into these roles. I
yep.
loved what I've been doing for the last 7 years. And I went and had a Reiki session actually in December. And she said, you have an immense amount of grief in your body. And she said, what are you grieving? And I just started crying. And I was like, I am leaving and letting go everything I built, like blood, sweat, and tears built that
Yeah.
is just like in my soul. And I healed through a lot of that building because when I had to make the decision to leave corporate America and retire, that wasn't a forced decision. That was my decision. I wasn't asked to leave. I wanted to leave and start my own thing. And I had to go through this same grief of, okay, wait a minute. So what I made in corporate America isn't what I'm worth because now I'm making $0. So am I worth nothing?
Mm.
There was a big identity crisis that I went through from being the top dog and the awesome producer and this person that, gets awards to zero. And you have to build it from scratch. And it's scary. It's like the reason why I love franchising so much because you're alone when you're building a business on your own, like as an entrepreneur, alone,
Yeah.
unless you decide to bring people around you. And that was why I built the community. It was like, and I reference God a lot because that's really kind of everyone has their thing. For me, that is it for me, and I feel it. And I was asked to build this community for women, and I was like, working with women really isn't what I love to do. And so I was again being obedient, but it was a tough start.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt defeated a lot. There were months where I really felt defeated. And, a year in, and I would get a phone call from someone, and it was like they were an angel or something. I can't explain it, but they would tell me everything I needed to hear. And you were like, okay, I need to keep going because that was a message, like a true message. No matter what, no one is immune to this, Kat. You know that when we make decisions, we still feel the grief. We still feel the
Yeah.
fear. We still feel the uncertainty because what I was doing before that I had built, I had created my own certainty. I had created my own kind of reality of, I know if I do this, this will happen. And so I was very comfortable in knowing how to generate income and build the business and what to do and how to fill a seat and, whatever. It
Mm-hmm.
was easy. So it's like, okay, I got to shift gears. And it's scary because there are days when you feel like you can't make it happen. And there are days when you feel like you're going to fail. And there are days when you just don't feel like it's the right path. And maybe I made a huge mistake. And when I went through a
Mm-hmm.
divorce, everyone goes through that after they go through a divorce. Did I make the right decision? Should we have gotten divorced? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. There's that
Yeah.
whole kind of, we all go through it at some point when you make a big life changing decision, and careers and businesses are big life changing decisions, just like marriages and children are. It's just in a different world, right? When we're talking about careers and business versus, family and children. So yeah, I think those are the in between spaces that no one wants to talk about, and I'll talk about it all day long because it's why I keep people around me. It's why I learn. It's why I keep my ears open. It's why I need resources and I'm not afraid to say I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. I need a legal team around me to teach me this because that I don't know that. And I don't want to know that. I'm not going to go pick up a book and try and learn something
Right.
that someone else can do for me
Yeah.
and they've been doing it for, centuries or whatever, decades. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm more like the female version of the Henry Ford, I want to have people around me that can tell me what I need to do or um I call them the who's that know the how. They're who are the people that know how to do it, connect with them, hire them, work with them. And I just believe in that. There's just really no other way to get where you want to go. I remember the conversation you and I had, and it was about speaking and being paid and getting on stages. And we had a long conversation. And I was like, you just have to it's about starting to know the who's that know how to do the hows, and you're asking that question every time you're on the phone with someone, and that sparks up another conversation, and that person has a little bit more information and a little bit more information. So I think we just need to be curious when we shift, but there has to be faith and belief. It's like the foundation that keeps you motivated, keeps me motivated.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. And there's so much to unpack, like just in this space, because going back to, when you made the decision is like you said, it wasn't that like I wanted to and I needed to help the business. Like it was a decision that I felt called to do. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in that in between of trying to figure out what does that mean, right? Do I really want to do this because I want to do this? Or am I like, no, I should because it's this person and I love them. And like being able to separate that. And I think that that comes back to like you were talking about in corporate when you chose to leave and then you didn't have all of that outside validation, all of those awards,
Mhm.
all of those things, you really do have to get into a space of coming back into you. And that is super hard for a lot of people. That was one of the hardest things I think I ever had to do when I was going through my own journey, which was reconnecting with my body and the emotions in it and actually knowing what they felt. I mean, bless my poor my poor spiritual coach, because I would have these moments and I'd have these breakdowns and I was like, but I want to push through. And she's like, great. So where do you feel? And I'm like, I don't know. Like it's that immediate, like you
Yeah.
want to push it off because especially for like people that have been in unsafe situations, right? We tend to like separate ourselves from that because every emotion
Yep.
scares us to the point of not knowing where it's going to take us next. And you talked about this as well as the uncertainty. And there's uncertainty in so many aspects of our lives, but there's also a lot of uncertainty for how we feel about ourselves and being willing to accept and go through that to see
Mhm.
where it takes us. And I think that that rolls into like when you were talking about grief and what you were going through. And this is something that I have recognized as well is every time that I have transitioned or added to or shifted my business a little bit, it is like this moment where I almost feel like I'm teeter-tottering, where I'm like, oh, but this is who I am. But it's like, but this is the new version. And it's not that you are throwing them away. It's just you are elevating to something else, but it does take your body like this moment of like, how do you detach from what you were and appreciate it and then be ready for this next unknown challenge?
Yeah.
And I just think that, like you said, one, it's scary as hell to do every single time. And there's such a beauty in it because you learn so much about yourself, you learn so much about people around you. And I think that it also ends up being easier to create boundaries. Like you said,
Yeah.
you could have taken on those coaching clients and you were like, no, that's a distraction. Whereas before, that was who you were at that time, that is what you wanted
Yeah.
to do. And you got to a place of completion in your life for what you had done. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that because we have been programmed to, once you start it, you have to fulfill it all the way to the very tip top. And that was a really hard one for me to understand as well, is like, did I complete what I came here to do in regards to like the components? Yes. Did it fulfill me at that time? Yes. Do I feel like I need to keep doing it? Well, no. Okay, well, then you have completed that path, that journey, or
Mhm.
whatever it is that's lied in front of you. And now it's time for you to move to something else. And like that is okay. And I think that was one I had to pound in my brain for a really long time, that it's like just because you decide to do something now doesn't mean that's what you're going to be doing forever. It can always shift, it can always pivot, it can always transition because you are continuing to grow and change, which then opens up more doors of what you want to do, or you're in a different season in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And I think that we need to be aware of that. I was talking to someone today and he said, when the outside of your life looks like everyone thinks it looks great and fine, maybe you have the house or the family or the money or the cars or whatever people judge what they think fine looks like, right?
Yep.
From the outside. He said, but then inside, you're just not satisfied. You're just not happy. And I think it's because I asked him what his why was on why he does what he does to help people achieve selling their businesses, or buying businesses. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, I just wasn't happy with what I was doing before. And, but he said, now working with mergers and acquisitions, and I see these business owners that everything they are is really tied up in their businesses, and their net worth is tied up in their businesses. They've put hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, and they've become like this kind of focal point for maybe their community or whatever it is. And, it's such a satisfaction to be able to see them get what they deserve out of a business, and be happy with that acquisition or a merger, or to be able to retire. And I think we need to remember in life, because so many of us were so driven by those things that I talked about, what people see our life, from the outside looking in. And, Kat, you and I could get into domestic violence forever, and people might look in from the outside of a house and think everything's so great, but it's not behind closed
Mm-hmm.
doors. And there's a lot of abuse that's, happening. We have to remember in our lives that what's the most important is safety, security, love, family. It's unfortunate that money is such a high driver in our society. It really is, because it would be so great if just the basics like food and shelter were covered, because then, that would be, everyone has to work so hard, it feels like, for them to make a way for themselves in life. And it hurts our family unit. It hurts marriages. People are
Mm-hmm.
traveling and they're gone all the time, and it affects their marriages. And I think it comes down to when we make decisions, like I had to make this decision. It was not all about me. It was about what is best in the long run for my family, what is best in the long run for my grandchildren, what is best in the long run, not only for the legacy or wealth of the family, but on top of that, for, being able to work with my husband versus us working separately. There's a lot to be said with that, working close with
Mm-hmm.
your kids. So, when you measure things out, and I'm just looking at it from a financial standpoint, yeah, I'm gonna be able to generate more wealth for the legacy of the family, what I'm doing today and what we're doing versus what I was doing before. But there's just this love and passion for, what I was doing before. So I need to realize that I'm not letting everything go. I'm that person. How do I bring that into the industry I'm moving into? How do I bring
Mm-hmm.
that? So when I talk about Colleenifying things, how do I bring that love, that family, that feeling of community, all those things that I create for people? That is a skill set of mine. How do I bring that into what I'm doing more?
Ooh, I love that. And I love that, there's this embodiment of who you have kind of always been and what you have
Mm.
always done, and using that as a way to pivot into where you're at now and fully embodying that into just like who you are at your core. I know that that was a really hard one for me and for a lot of people that I've talked with, where especially coming from like the corporate space, we have that kind of mask that we still put on. We're like, oh, but we enjoy it to an extent, but there's still that mask that you're showing everybody, and then you're still being somebody else at home or with friends and everything else, and it still becomes extremely exhausting. And then you're almost tearing your identity apart of trying to choose which one you want to be.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the space that I'm in today and the space that you're in, like I am who I am in front of absolutely anyone who comes in front of me. And if that's a problem for you, so be it. And I'm okay with that. I don't feel like I need to be a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way in order for people to take me seriously, because I know that whomever it's supposed to reach, whoever it's supposed to connect to, wherever it's supposed to impact is going to get that, right? And I feel like that's the same way in what you're doing now is the ability to say like, yes, I love doing this, and then this is what I feel called to, and this is going to drive that impact. This is going to drive that passion, and you get to have a beautiful ripple effect out into your family,
Yeah.
which is better than any, in my personal opinion, financial legacy because you are making a difference in your grandchildren's lives, which will make in your great grandchildren's lives for the way that they decide to move forward in something. And to me, that's how you start to create change
Yeah.
in your own world that then pushes out more because of the people that they end up touching. So I'm curious to know then, as you were kind of going through all of this and making these decisions, have you ever had any type of practice or certain things that you've done to kind of help you come to these understandings, come to these conclusions, or lean into that little bit of a nudge that you know you're feeling to where you can fully embody it?
Yeah. I mean, I say fit body, fit mind, fit business, right? So, and I really believe in that. The more that I take care of myself, and that would be for mental clarity, my mental health, as well as for my spiritual health, as well as for my physical health. I think those are all important. So I've always been a really healthy eater. That plays a huge part in my energy. It plays a huge part in the sustainability that I have in eating healthy. Same thing with moving my body and working out. I've always been drawn to that. So that on a regular basis during the week really helps my mind. It helps my body feel strong. It helps my mind feel strong. And then I really am a spiritual person. So I read scriptures in the morning. I pray in the morning. I really feel like connecting and spending time with family is also another practice that we can do as individuals that help fulfill us internally. So these practices are the things that I think are important in all of our lives that
Mm,
we need to have is whether it's plugging into a social circle, plugging into a friend circle if you don't have kids, or if you do, plugging into your kids circle or your grandkids circle, whatever that looks like. How do you get time or get that kind of lift of a spirit back? And, you know, for instance, we took one of our granddaughters, she just turned 22. We took her out for her birthday last night and spent 2.5, 3 hours with her at dinner just talking. And she looked at me and she's like, it's just so nice to just sit and talk because her life's really busy. Our life's busy. So we don't see each other that often. She's 22 years old. You never get to see a 22-year-old. You know, if they're six, their mom will bring them over. But if they're 22, they're not, you know? So she just made the comment of how nice it was, and I just felt how great it was to just catch up on her life and see what her plans are and what she wants to do, and have her ask questions. And sometimes we can give her advice, you know, because we're wise because we're older than she is, and it's just so what's the word I want to use? Like it's breathtaking to me to see the world through the eyes of a 22-year-old, you know, and what she thinks and the things that she doesn't know yet and the things that she's scared about. Um, you know, it really is just there's an appreciation you get for being older and wiser at that point, I think, because I wouldn't want to go back to being 22 at all, ever. But you know, we have to have mentors around us. I talked about knowledge and learning and resources, and knowledge and learning and
mm,
resources. You have to constantly have the tools around you for whatever it is that you have that's different than someone else, I say. So if a doctor wants to label you ADHD, fine. I'm not a labeler. So if they want to label you and that's good for you, awesome. I say, what tools do you need because you're different? So my brain works different. I call it organized chaos. I can be extremely productive, right?
yep.
But I can get very distracted. but I can be extreme. And that extraction, that being distracted also means that then I'll go over here and be extremely productive before I come back over here. So it's this organized chaos that gets wrapped up in this beautiful bow at the end of the day. I have to have tools to support the way my brain works. So I use a calendar. That's my main tool. And that calendar is what I follow every single second. So when I was telling you earlier what my schedule looked like, I know exactly what I have to do every minute of today based on who's on my calendar, projects I've put on there, and I will follow that calendar because that's the commitment I made to myself of what I
Mhm.
need to do, and I'm not going to let myself down. And I'm shocked at so many people that say, why? I mean, I use a calendar too, but what do you do if you don't follow it? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to answer you because why would you let yourself down like that? I just don't even understand why you would do that. Now, if you are like hungry and need to grab something to eat, or someone comes to your door, or you or a headache, you have a headache coming on and you get a migraine, or you need to go lay down for a few hours and change your schedule, there's nothing wrong with that. You move things around based on what you need to do in your environment, but you still made a commitment to yourself. So to not do something when you committed it to yourself, I guess I have a hard time understanding why that would be okay or acceptable to anyone, because your self-worth should be worth more than that, than you
Mm.
just not doing that. And it's not that I'm talking about self-worth, meaning I have all these self-care things planned for myself today. Self-worth is I'm going to hold myself accountable and I'm going to commit to something, and then I'm going to follow through on that commitment to me because I'm worth it.
I love this so much. Like, like I want you to repeat this because it is so imperative and it's so interesting that we tend to put everyone else in front and we want them to commit and we want to be there to commit to them. But when it comes to commitment of ourselves, like you said, following your calendar, that's a commitment to yourself. We don't think of it as that. We're just like, oh, it's fine. I'll just move it. I can get it done later. And you're right. We really are beating down our own self-worth. And then we wonder why when something we really wanted to do gets in front of us and we're like, I really wanted to do it, but I had all these other things. Like you start to make excuses, and it is because you've inevitably built a pattern of how you will then show up for yourself. I thank you so much for bringing this up because I struggled with that for a really long time, that what I say to myself is what I am going to do. And I had a really hard time with putting those two things together. I was like, I mean, I love myself. That's self-worth, right? That's what that means. And it's like, no, just like you would commit to other people and you don't want to let other people down for things that you've promised or things you said you were going to do. It's the same thing with yourself. It's just you don't always feel that internal feeling of like, oh, what if they get upset with me? Because you're not going to feel that to yourself consciously. So you're just like, oh, it's fine.
Oh, see, I would. I beat myself up. I'd be like, why didn't you just do that today? Now you got to do it tomorrow, you know? I always ask myself the question, if I'm procrastinating, why am I procrastinating on this?
Mm,
And usually, if I get down to the nut of it or the root of it, it winds up being because I don't have the knowledge in some area that I need. So I'm struggling to get this task done. I
yeah.
don't like doing this task because I just don't like it. Maybe there's a fear based in it or whatever it might be, right? Some people do not like to make phone calls. If I have it on my like calendar, I'm going to make phone calls, call our customers, thank them for being part of our business. I actually love those calls. They're the funnest calls to me because people love to hear from you when you're just saying thank you so much for being a customer. They love it.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, "Oh, I would just dread that." You could put it on his calendar every day for 3 weeks and he would never get it done. So I think we have to identify, why am I not doing these things on my calendar, and why am I
Yeah.
not committing to myself? And that's really the number one thing when it comes to accountability. So many people think, and there's programs out there, I've ran them for accountability, because so many people need other people to feel accountable to. It's like going to the gym. If you need to go to the gym with a friend, or you need to go to the gym when a class starts at 9 a.m., and you need to be like Orange Theory, where you enroll 24 hours in advance and then you don't get your money back. You're committed because they're holding you accountable, because they're holding your money hostage, and they're holding the time. Right. And so your spot's in the class. And if you don't go, you don't get your money back. But
Hmm.
how sad is it that in today's society, it has to be that extreme to get people to be accountable to what they say that they're going to do? That you got to pay the money, you don't get the money back, and then the time is reserved and you have to do it 24 hours in advance. I'm the type of person that can just wake up and turn on my Lululemon mirror and do a workout, because I committed to myself to do the workout, and I don't need to drive to the gym and meet someone and be accountable and make sure I show up at the same time every day. So, and I believe there are people on all levels of spectrum for that. Meaning, if you're still working on it, there was probably a time when you needed others to help you be held accountable. And
Yeah.
then when you shift careers, or become a mom, or when things change in your life, you might need to go back to having someone hold you accountable to things, because it's new
Yeah.
and it's scary, and you don't have the knowledge. So you're like, oh, I don't know this. So the reason why I'm not pursuing it is because I don't know it, and I don't know where to find the knowledge. I mean, today with AI, right? Everyone can ask any AI app for any
Yep.
information at all to learn how to do something. And I keep forgetting that's there all the time. I forget
I
it's
do the
there
same
to ask
thing.
those questions. And someone last night, I'll give you an example. My 22-year-old granddaughter said, well, I have conversations with ChatGPT. And I was like, what does that mean to have a conversation? She's like, oh, well, you can talk to it. It talks back to you. And I was like, really? Because I use it on a regular basis. I didn't know you could talk to it. She's like, oh, yeah, it knows where I live. It knows how old I am. It knows what car. I was like, I don't even know if that's a good thing that you're telling me right now, that this AI knows that much about you. I feel like I'm a little concerned, you know? But that's the world that she's living in, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the world in which she was raised in, which looks way different than my world, where we didn't have cell phones,
Yep.
when I was a kid. You didn't
Yeah.
even have clean water. You just drank out of the hose. No one knew. We
Just
didn't do
drink out
bottled
of the
water
hose.
back then. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So I guess that's my point about it, is we need to make sure that if you really want to be successful and that's your goal, you have to identify what success looks like to you. And then once you've
Mhm.
identified what it looks like to you, and my success is going to look different than your success
Yes.
in our lives. And it's not always about money. Time, energy, and money to me are pretty equivalent on the way that I would weigh them. And so many other people think, oh, no, I would, spend my time more than I would money. And it's like, well, if I can throw money at it faster than wasting 4 hours of my time, like my housekeepers, or, anyone that does my lawn, or I'm trying to think of all the
Hmm.
things that I partner with people to help me do. I have someone build stuff in Canva for me. I never build anything in Canva, because it would take me 4 hours. It would take them 10 minutes.
Yep.
And I partner with all of those people in my life, because I get to do what I love and what I do best, and they get to do what they love and what they do best. And why don't we
Hmm.
partner more with people like
Mm.
that in our
Yeah.
lives? You know?
Yeah, I think it's just because we haven't been taught that like
Mm.
partnerships make sense, right? We are
Yeah.
taught to like you're supposed to do it and you have to be everything and you've got to make sure you handle this. And I love the partnership. I think that makes and I was that person. Like I handled everything. I did everything for my kids and took care of everything for my house and da 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 like everything. And now I'm just like what do I not have to do? Right? Like, can we order groceries and it gets delivered to the house?
Yes.
Phenomenal. I don't have to get like that
I
saves
partner with
so
Instacart. My gosh, my Costco order just comes to my door and I thank them so much. Thank you so
oh,
much
it's
for,
the
and they're thanking me
best.
because they get to be out there making money and doing
Yep.
their own thing. And there's so many ways for people to make money today, right?
Yeah.
They need that. So I agree with you on that for
Yeah,
sure.
I am no longer the 100% I will do it all. I agree with that 100%. Okay, so
Yeah.
uh I have one more question for you as we come to a close. Since we've talked about everything from making changes to pivoting in life and realizing what now is more important here than, what it was, and kind of pushing through all of that. And thank you again for, really sharing like that muddy middle that we all go through. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with? A quote, a piece of advice, anything like that?
I would generally say a quote, but I think what I'm really feeling encouraged to say today is find what your happiness is, period. Your happiness is going to look different than someone else. And success, people say, oh, when you're successful, you're happy. It's the opposite of that. When you're happy, you can be successful in being a
Mm,
mother, in being a grandmother, in being a business owner, whatever it is that you're doing, find your happiness. Start there. You've got to find what lights you up. What is the happiness that brings you joy and do more of that, whatever that is. This country, this world would be a very different place if we were happier.
yeah,
People were happier. It really would be because they would be kinder to everyone else. So
yeah.
just dig down and find that happiness for you.
I love that. I think that's so pertinent on so many levels, whether it's in your work, whether it's in your family life, your friend life, your relationships. Like, I love that. Find your happy. Oh, thank you, Colleen, so
Thank you,
much.
Kat. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the deep dive. I appreciate the insight, and like I said, just sharing personally where you've come from, how you've pivoted, and the thought patterns that you have, because I think that we forget that we actually think a lot more similar with each other than what we realize, but it's
Mhm.
easier to put ourselves in our own little box and pretend like nobody else would understand how we're feeling.
Yeah,
So
for
thank you
sure.
for sharing that so much. Please tell everybody then before we go, where can they find you? How can they connect with you? I know that you've got a book, you've got some events going
Mm.
on. Tell us all the
So much
things.
stuff going on. So the best way to connect with me is colleenbiggs.net. That's the best way. You can Google me, Colleen Biggs. I'll be everywhere and you can click on those links. But colleenbiggs.net is the best place to find me. I would love for you to follow me on Instagram at Colleen Biggs. And that's a place where I post pretty much my entire life. So you can follow me there too.
Love it. Thank you so much again for being a part of the podcast today, Colleen. To everybody else out there, I hope that not only did you learn something from this, but there's also a sense of connection and understanding that regardless of where you are at in your journey, whether you feel like you're beginning, like you're in the middle, or like you have already made it, there are still going to be things that you go through. There are still going to be thought patterns, things that you need to let go of, grieving of who you used to be. Anything that you are hearing today is not something that you experience once, you've lived it, and then you move on. There are so many components to this that I am learning are a repetitive process, and it does become a piece of who you are as you continue to grow. So lean into that uncomfortability, lean into that unknown, and understand that it's not there to hurt you, it is there to help you as you continue on your growth. So until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.